I just wanted to tell everybody 37 through 50 are available in the site. We are looking here at the Superflex rankings, but I have actually rankings for PPR, non-PPR, Superflex, and tight end premium. So whatever your format is, if you're wanting to look at rookie rankings, go to cbssports.com. You will find my fully updated rookie rankings and more than we are going to talk about here because we will stop at pick 36. 25 through 36, Hendon Hooker, another guy who really difficult for me to rank in Superflex. It's easy for me to just forget about him in a one quarterback league. But if he has a chance to become a starter, he has some value. So he's the first pick for me. Then Israel Abanikanda, probably the biggest faller for me since my May rankings. Rashee Rice, Sam LaPorta, Michael Mayer, those two are just linked. Wherever I rank one of them, the other one will be ranked right after him until we see some reason to do otherwise. Zach Evans, Chase Brown, Deuce Vaughn, Eric Gray, Sean Tucker, and Cedric Tillman. That's 25 through 36. Hendon Hooker, Israel Abanikanda. I probably said that wrong. Dave will correct me. Rashee Rice, Sam LaPorta, Michael Mayer, Zach Evans, Chase Brown, Deuce Vaughn, Eric Gray, Sean Tucker, Cedric Tillman. Dave, am I overreacting to what has not been a great start to camp for Israel Abanikanda and the potential Dalvin Cook signing?
I think you have him ranked too high. I don't like his potential of being I don't know if he's going to have a long career. I think he's NFL ready now. He just ended up on a team that isn't going to be conducive to him getting on the field a lot, especially if they're looking at Dalvin Cook. Who knows if they'll look at any other running backs. That's not a good sign. And I liked Abanikanda at Pitt. I really did. And I thought if he landed in the right spot, he'd be great. Now I'm wondering if he's got to sit and toil in New York for 3 years and then either get cut or get traded. Okay. And he lands on another team where he can actually be helpful. This is the type of player that I'm going to let somebody else in my Dynasty league take. And then 18 months from now, I might be able to get him for a song. And he ends up being helpful for a half season or one full season down the line.
Two things about, and Dan, I'll let you talk about this. I actually, especially with the Dalvin Cook flirtation and Nathaniel Hackett's history, do not think, certainly not this year, Breece Hall's going to be a 300 carry back. I don't know that Breece Hall is going to be a 300 carry back as long as Hackett's there. Hackett's history would tell you he might not be there next year. But I think this is more of an Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon type situation. And my hope was that Abanikanda is a better runner than Michael Carter or Zonovan Knight and ends up in that 10 to 12 carry role until something happens to Breece Hall. The other reason that he was ranked so high before is I put a pretty big weight on age. We were joking about Dalton Kincaid. Israel Abanikanda is not old enough to drink beer right now, not legally.
Yeah, you're definitely getting a younger back there with Israel Abanikanda. I think a big point that you brought up on this podcast, Heath, and something really interesting that I've just been thinking about since you brought it up, and we've discussed it throughout, is really factor in and look for the path for these guys. Like, where is the path to playing time? Because at this position, more than any other, you don't really have the longest shelf life. If you don't hit early and you don't make that impact early to move up a depth chart and start to see touches, you're probably not going to, at least with that team. And then by that point, you hit free agency, you're 24, 25. There are a few examples, like Samaje Perine is somebody who did a really good job of somehow finding relevancy later in his career after initially, quote unquote, busting as a prospect, but it doesn't happen often. And so you bring it up with Abanikanda, yeah, you get the age break, but I am definitely concerned with what Dave was talking about, where there's just not much of a path, at least toward early playing time, especially if they do bring in Dalvin Cook.
Okay, Dave, I'm going to give you a chance now to sell me on Rashee Rice, because he was, believe it or not, at pick 27 in a Superflex draft. He is a riser and one of the bigger risers since May for me. So I have opened my mind a little bit to the possibility of Rashee Rice. But what do you love about this guy? And you are not allowed to say Patrick Mahomes.
Well, but I mean, you've got to consider that that's going to be part of the puzzle. The fact that he's not catching passes from Anthony Richardson. Right. He's got Patrick freaking Mahomes throwing him lobs.
Who's the backup?
What's up?
Who's the backup for the Chiefs?
Blaine Gabbert, I think.
Yeah, I think he'll mostly catch passes from Blaine Gabbert.
Right. Yeah. Oh, listen, I'm not into Rashee Rice making an impact this year. So yes, this year he's going to catch a lot of passes from Blonde Gibber, as I like to call him. But I think he's a perimeter receiver who's shown that he has a nose for the end zone over his career. I think he's already good size. I think he plays bigger than that, which sounds a little funny. Good contact balance, good quick feet. He's not a burner, so it might look a little bit like George Pickens did in his rookie year, and he needs improvement on his route technique. He can get coached that. I like that he's getting some buzz early on in training camp. I don't think it's going to matter. I don't think he should be drafted with any type of decent pick in redraft, but I think he belongs in the conversation of a top 20 pick in a rookie-only draft. I think he absolutely does, because he does have potential with Patrick Mahomes in this offense as an outside guy starting in 2024.
Okay, Dan, Sam LaPorta versus Michael Mayer. Am I right to just leave these guys back to back? Whichever one you want in front. I've picked LaPorta because I think he could have an impact this year, and I don't expect that Michael Mayer will. But they're both just kind of, we're hoping they become low-end tight end starters at some point in the future, right?
I have a little bit more hope for both of those players. This, for me, was a pretty historic tight end class as far as my evaluation goes on film. I thought both these players were great on film. I actually thought Mayer was even better on tape, but part of that was the blocking. But as far as the receiving goes and the upside, obviously what we care, which is what we care about in fantasy football, I'm fine ranking them back-to-back as well, Heath. I may have them a tick or two higher. That's about it. I like that Mayer joined Josh McDaniel. For as long as McDaniel will be there, I don't know, but I do like the fact that the owner there is very cheap and doesn't really want to move on from a coach and have to pay that coach contract while paying another coach contract. I actually don't even know if cheap is the right word. I think he's just like not cash fluid at this time. Like, there's no actual assets outside of the team. So I think Mayer will be there. I think McDaniel will be there, I should say, for a while, which helps Mayer a lot. LaPorta, I love Ben Johnson as an offensive coordinator, maybe the best in the NFL, in my opinion, right now, if not top 3. And so I think you're right. He'll work in a role for him early. Long term, I probably have Mayer one spot ahead of LaPorta, but I do like the back-to-back there.
Dave, these running backs I've got in round 3 here: Abanikanda, Evans, Chase Brown, Deuce Vaughn, Eric Gray, Sean Tucker. Any hope for any of these guys, actually?
I love Tucker's game from Syracuse. I'm not fazed that he went undrafted. He had a medical issue that's been cleared up. It would not surprise me if he took over for Rachaad White at some point this year in Tampa Bay's run game. I think he's certainly more explosive than Rachaad White. I think he can get there. I'm really, really bullish on Sean Tucker. Even traded a future pick in our Dynasty draft just to get him on my team. He's going to sit on my practice squad this year. But I'm very excited about his talent. Everybody else except for Chase Brown really doesn't move the needle for me. Brown only because he's in Cincinnati. We don't think that Joe Mixon's got a long-term future there. This could be his last year there. If the Bengals decide, we don't need to spend big capital on a running back, we'll just go with Chase Brown, they could do that, and he could be their rundowns back next year. It could be a situation that plays out. But I don't really feel it for Abanikanda as much as I love the talent. Gray, Deuce Vaughn, Zach Evans, all those guys, don't feel it.
Every time I see a Deuce Vaughn training camp highlight, I get a little bit more excited. I think everybody's making too big a deal out of the size. I think the Cowboys are going to have something for Deuce Vaughn to do this season.
I completely agree. I'm higher on Vaughn than it sounds like some people are. Some of the consensus is, because I haven't seen him move too much further up the rankings. I think I'll say one thing about the whole size thing with Vaughn, because we see it obviously in these clips. It looks crazy. If you ask some people, myself included, I think it actually helps him and works to his benefit that
he hides.
He hides behind the blockers. He keeps a low center of gravity through the contact point. He keeps his pad level low, and that also helps him as far as breaking tackles and shifting shifting his weight and getting out of tackles. It's worked in the past for running backs, not to this degree at 5'4", obviously, but some of the best running backs have been in that 5'6" to 5'8" range, and it does actually, in my opinion, it's the one position where height I don't think matters. I think it sometimes can even help you to be lower. Another one of those examples is center in the NFL, not for fantasy, but just in general NFL, where actually height doesn't always work in your favor. And I think running back is one of them. So I don't use the height to knock him. More so, I'm worried about, like, at that size total, weight included, can he actually hold up at the NFL level? That would be a bigger concern for me.
Yeah, I certainly don't think he's ever going to see 200 touches in a season, but I do think he could be a really fun guy in the passing game, and maybe a best ball specialist for those of you going 20-22 rounds in best ball leagues. You don't know when it happens,